everybody. Welcome on this springy day on the inside of the Metropolitan Ballroom, at least, for the Good Leadership Breakfast. My name is JC Lippold. I will be your co-host today. And how good does it feel to be in a room full of people that maybe you know some, maybe you're going to meet some new friends and some new people who you can co-create with in this world. Let's make the most out of today, all right? If you're here for the first time, what you're about to engage in are ways that we come together in good leadership to consider where we are going, where we are, and what is possible together. So, the 7 F's. If you look at the QR codes on the notepad on your table, one of them will say 7 F's exercise. Go ahead and take a picture of that with your phone, and it'll bring you to the link for the 7 F's exercise. So, the 7 F's, as you can see up on the screen, is a wonderful scorecard for us personally and a great way to strengthen relationships, build trust, and embrace healthy tension with those around us. You'll see faith, family, finances, fitness, friends, fun, and future. So when you pull this up on your phone, you'll see that you can adjust your scores to each of these 7, on 1 being this can't be any worse in your life, 10 being it could not be any better. So take the next minute right now to consider where you are at in your life with these 7 F's. Benny will go ahead and play a little 7 F's music while y'all work. It's so important to see, right, that what you're doing right now is exactly how we grow our 7 F's. We believe that people can grow as much in their 7 F's at work as they can at home. And in opportunities like this, when you have someone's perspective to relay what they hear you saying, and maybe where you find some imbalance and some opportunities for growth. With rapid change, eligible candidates are craving leaders who are focused on building strong teams by doing exactly what you're doing right now, building strong individuals. So save today's results in your phone so you can compare them the next time we gather at the breakfast, or maybe you put a little reminder in your calendar to redo your 7 F's on a weekly basis. There's great opportunity for this self-reflection, and it just takes that minute. Let's get to the next segment of our Good Leadership Breakfast today. It is truly an honor for me to hand things over to the creator of the Good Leadership Breakfast, a thought leader in the executive coaching industry whose firm, Good Leadership, is creating the category of executive team coaching. Everybody, let's give a round of applause for Paul Botts. Hey!
Thanks, JC.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
JC said this earlier, regardless of what's going on outside, it's bright and sunny in here. Yeah, thank you very much for being here. It's so fun to see so many friends who've been a part of this journey. For those of you who are new, we started the Good Leadership Breakfast in January of 2010, and we intended to do it one time. Today is our 95th episode. Yeah, thanks. And that also means the 100th will be in November of this year. So we're making some cool plans for that. We'll figure out how to engage everybody. But as preparing for today, I was thinking back over a career. So I've been working with executive teams and individual executives and CEOs for 25 years. And the thing that's happening right now is that every single one of our clients is keenly aware of their talent pool. And I've actually never seen that before. We usually talk about competitive forces and all sorts of other things, you know, the maneuvers that CEOs make. But the conversation around talent is unbelievably intense right now. So one of the things that when you do leadership consulting and coaching for a living, for years and years we've been trying to avoid sports metaphors. But we finally decided to just embrace it, because even people who aren't in sports will use sports metaphors to talk about teams and business and things like that. And so we're going all in on the sports metaphor. So much so that the next book that's coming out this summer under Good Leadership Press is called Good Leadership as a Team Sport. In the process of going through this, I've started to realize that I really wish all of my clients thought about their teams sort of like football coaches or basketball coaches or hockey coaches, because they understand you can't consistently win without outstanding talent. And guess what? The best athletes get the best coaching. And that is not a concept that's ubiquitous in business. It's actually the other way around. Most of the time we get calls for coaching is because they have someone they're worried that's in trouble. So we exist to kind of turn that around. We coach executives and their teams. And we only coach teams who say they intend to win. And that is really exciting work. So there's something else that happens in this book. In the very beginning, I quote a piece of research by this organization called Russell Reynolds that was just really startling to me. So before the pandemic, they did a research project that involved about 17,000 executives. And I was stunned to find this one piece of data. So 93% of those executives said they believe they make a positive impact on the team they sit on. And that same group was asked, so do you think your team's gonna hit your goals this year? And only 55% of them said yes. That's amazing. A 38% blind spot. Here's how I think we can explain it. The forces of the universe have been forcing people into sort of resume building and thinking about the next thing, and we've really kind of lost sight on what does it take to actually become a team that's going to help each other win. You guys know that the definition of goodness is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. Well, thrive together and positive teamwork are not represented on this slide. So it's been fascinating as we now start to think about how to help our CEO clients and the people who have teams think about high performance. Yes, it's about making sure you have A players, but it's also making sure that you've got a mix that needs to be right. So on one hand, you need people who are independent, self-motivated, and accountable, especially when you've got a work-from-home environment that's a part of this. And you also need people who believe that we is greater than me. And this, we're learning, is a stretch for a lot of people. So what we're doing now is we're really focusing on the right mix, because even the football team that gets all stars and all pros doesn't usually win. They have to have that right mix of people. So as we've been thinking about how are we helping people through this, I went back and started researching the most influential books and people who write about this stuff over the last few years, and we identified 3 things that have been consistent all along. And if you're going to take notes on anything today, this would be it. The people that get along the most and have the best results and stay together the longest have these 3 things in common. They find the work to be meaningful, both personally and professionally. And also, they're connected to the mission, but the work needs to be meaningful. The second thing is they need to work with people they respect and admire, and they need to be feeling like they're making progress to their own personal aspirations. So none of these concepts are rocket science, are they? But in the context of how much everything has been moving, all these decisions we're trying to make about hybrid work environments, these are the 3 things that we should all be working to make sure that everyone has. That's one of the reasons why our speaker today is such a good example of what we're trying to do. It's not a surprise that we tapped into a CHRO to help us think about this today. So one of the things I think we need to do is to just stay back to basics. Thinking about the basics as you're navigating through a summer, I think you should fully expect that everyone will use all their PTO this summer. We're already seeing it. One client that I talked to earlier this week, they were so far behind on using their PTO that they just literally recommended people consider taking 2 weeks or 3 weeks for spring break so they could catch up. Yeah, this is real. So think about back to the basics. We just reminded you of what those are. So one of my favorite things about version 3.0 now of the Good Leadership Breakfast, version 2.0 was online during COVID. We learned how to efficiently collect data. And so we're going to do that here today, and I'm going to introduce my friend Heather. So we have almost 20 executive coaches that are sprinkled all around the country. Heather lives here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Heather and I have known each other for 18 years. Heather is a remarkable mix of a person. She's really good around mindfulness and helping leaders be fully present, but she's also really, really good at being ferocious with teams. And, you know, she's just one of these people that I always love to spend time with. So thank you for being here, Heather. And Heather's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the research we collected, and she's going to engage you in adding to that research. Heather?
Thank you so much, Paul. What a great introduction. And I love being a coach at Good Leadership. We get to have conversations that really matter and that are real, individually and as a team. And it's very uplifting work. So a real pleasure to be here. So we get to engage you as the audience and get some of your real-time input on these questions. And they're very timely as everything that kind of Paul teed up, engagement, how appreciated you feel, how you're helping your people move forward in their career, all really salient questions. So let's compare you to a larger group of folks here. So the first question coming out of the pandemic, do you feel the appreciation you receive for your contributions at work has increased, stayed the same, or decreased? And maybe we can have a little music as people input those responses. All right. Well, we have a pretty distinct pattern here, Paul, and it's kind of consistent with the first polling questions. Very encouraging to see those strong numbers. People feeling appreciated, at least in this room, Paul.
Well, that'll be fascinating for us to show you what we collected with 300 executives ahead of time. So let's look at that.
So quite a difference here. So this was a sample of a larger population of folks who have elected not to come to the breakfast briefing today. So this is the right room to be in, and we're glad you're here. So a really different pattern that we see. So by the way, with stay the same there, 48%, we don't really know if that means that people did feel a high level of appreciation or maybe a low level. That's a little unclear.
Yeah, well, it's obvious when we like to think that we create an environment here of appreciation and positivity, and you're here, and so that score does not surprise us at all.
Great. Well,
What's
let's
next?
Move to the second question. Coming out of the pandemic, has your connection to the mission of your company increased, stayed the same, or decreased? And Paul, I love this question. I'm having so many conversations with leaders through the pandemic about their values and what's most important to them. And let's see how sticky that is as it connects with our mission, with the organization's mission. And again, what a great pattern we see starting there. So this is a great thing to see on a Friday morning, Paul.
Yes.
People, that's really phenomenal. 60% feel more connected to the mission of their organizations.
Well, this is another big, huge contrast. So let's see what we collected earlier.
Look at that difference, 60 to 24%. So the folks that are self-selecting to come here today have that stronger connection with their organization's mission.
Well, what I think about when I see that data, the contrast, is that I fully believe in what we concentrate on grows, and that also means what we look for, we find. And so this is a group of people that looks for connection to mission. And it feels a lot better to be in this room than that room. Yeah, good. So let's look at the third question.
Let's do our last one. So this one can be really personal for us, and we're also experiencing this from our leadership. How satisfied are you with how leaders in your company are helping you make progress towards your career aspirations? This is so key now, Paul, what we've been talking about with talent retention.
And every time I see the two words together, very unsatisfied, it just makes me kind of go, ooh. I don't really have anything in my life that I'm very unsatisfied with. Yeah, look at that.
Incredible.
If we look at what we collected before, so let's go to the next slide. And so you can see just how I think the point of this data is. The bell curve applies in most situations, and you've seen that on these three slides, the 300 executives that answered this question before the meeting. The bell curve does not apply in this room, partly because I think that you are positive people looking for mission and are feeling like it's worth it to invest in your own development and the people around you. And I think that's the point, the contrast effect here. Do not assume that when you go back to the office that everyone's like you. And that's what leaders do, is we have to bridge those gaps and make those connections. I'm going to toss it back to you. I'm curious to find out what you see here. And then, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot of low-hanging fruit in our organizations.
Yeah.
And really important opportunities for leaders to have aspiration conversations with their people. For the last 2 years, we've been heads down, and some of that stuff has been tabled. Now more than, it really has an impact just to ask somebody in your team, what are you thinking about for the future? And those lower numbers on the broader group certainly underscore that as an opportunity.
Yeah, we gave you a tool. It's called 7F's Wheel. And it's out there in the universe, but if you need it, just tell us. We'll send it to you, and you can use it however you want. But as you do a 7F's Wheel conversation, fixate on future. That's the one that people are craving the most.
Great.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Heather.
Paul.
It's really great. Awesome. Let's give it up for Heather. So the process for picking speakers of the Good Leadership is really one of the joys in my life. We try really hard, and I think we're succeeding, at making sure we're presenting a mosaic of leaders, men and women, people in the first half and second half of their careers, people who make livings many, many, many different ways, and we go out of our way to make sure that we present people who are not just white. It's part of the karmic energy of what we're trying to do at Good Leadership. Goodness is when people thrive together. So today, we have an outstanding executive leader. She flew in from Washington, D.C. It's really fun to spend time getting to know these speakers. What I'll tell you right now is she's the mom of 4 boys between the ages of 16 and 26. We could just talk all day about that. Her husband is a trial lawyer, a litigator who's been out of town for 6 weeks working on a case. She grew up here in this community, and it now has risen to be recognized as one of the most influential women in corporate America. I first met our speaker when I was a speaker at a conference. It was the last session of the day before the cocktail hour. And so we were talking about these goodness concepts, everything we talk about here at the Good Leadership. And there were 3 people in the room who were amazingly engaged. They were interjecting ideas, they were asking questions, and this person was by far the most memorable. We spilled our conversation into the cocktail hour and started a friendship that lasts till today, right here. So please join me in welcoming Natalie Stute. So here's where I remind you, you can still use your phones. At any point in time, if you have a question you want to ask Natalie, just type it into that chat function, and it goes to our team. Heather will be looking at it, and in a few minutes, Heather's going to ask some of those questions directly. So here we sit. You are a global executive, been recognized for all sorts of powerful things. You started here in Burnsville, Minnesota.
Go Blaze.
Yeah. So can you just give us the 2-minute story of what were the things that happened to go from Burnsville, Minnesota to where you're at now?
Yeah. Oh gosh. And thank you, Good Leadership. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, everyone, for being here. With this pandemic.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so good to see people. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Be with people. So yeah, grew up in Burnsville and loved the sports thing because my parents, who were educators, combined 80 plus years teaching. It was ingrained in us for hard work, achievement, and hard work, achievement. So sports, they had us in every sport under the sun: volleyball, track, softball, tennis, basketball, you name it. Bowling. Every week.
So now come on, fess up. I learned last night that she actually had a scholarship to go to college for bowling.
Yeah. It does exist.
That's a first in 95. Yeah, go ahead.
So fast forward, they had us in Inroads. I don't know if you're familiar with Inroads. Every Saturday morning, college preparation, leadership development. How do you interview? How do you write resumes? And so fast forward, I met amazing people. Had an internship at that time, St. Paul Companies for 4 summers. Now Travelers Insurance. Met amazing people like Barbara Butts-Williams, who is an amazing role model, mentor. Just can't say enough things. Learned about HR. Had no idea what HR was. And I think I interviewed every single person in the HR department to find out what in the heck is HR, what do you do, how did you get to where you are, and I kind of connected the pieces together. I think I shared last night I had 6 majors I attempted in college. I don't recommend that, but I landed on psychology and chemistry, which I loved. Psychology of the brain, human interaction, and graduated from Florida A&M University and landed at Travelers, St. Paul Companies, and worked in diversity, and also joined Best Buy to help start their diversity area. And it was an awesome time, very entrepreneurial. You could try, fix, put stuff together. And then Travelers called and said, hey, we'd love for you to come back with our leadership rotational program. Come on back, went to grad school, met amazing people like Stacy Hepner-Dove, who was the director of the master's program at Carlson for HR. And worked my way up through HR. And then amazing people like Cynthia Newsom called. She was the executive coach at at Jostens at that time. Said, come on over, we've got a great opportunity. She was the executive coach, the CEO at that time. And it was really about the transformation of the business. 120 plus year company, trying to figure out how do we evolve, how do we continue to grow as an organization. Helped on a number of fronts from a talent initiative perspective, and helped sell the company. We were owned by KKR at the time. And it was just a tremendous amount of change in terms of how do you mobilize people in a meaningful way? How do you inspire? How do you make sure that people honestly buy into what you're trying to do from a vision, strategy perspective? Met amazing people like Julie Mayer and Jessica Wick, who are here today. Team members who just really roll up their sleeves and get the job done. My husband got a job in D.C. So moved the family, 4 kids to D.C. And my plan was to just, get the house settled, take some time off, but I don't know how to sit still. So
that whole achievement thing your parents put in your head, right?
I have a plan. So a company called Concilio called, said, hey, we've got 50 employees. We've never had a head of HR before. Would love for you to come join. Awesome opportunity. We went from 50 employees to 3,000 employees in 2 years, 11 acquisitions, sold it twice. And we were in 20 countries globally, 70 offices, and it was hypergrowth, just awesome opportunity in the e-discovery space. And then another opportunity came along, which Gainwell, where I'm at today. Gainwell is a carve-out divestiture from DXC Technology, and very similar, hypergrowth, owned by private equity. We started in October 1 of 2020 during a pandemic, so trying to start a company in this crazy hybrid, well, not really, it was remote, 100% remote, and grow the companies through acquisitions and standing up everything, infrastructure, network systems, people, teams, globally. And so Gainwell, we are, for those that may not know, we are an industry leader in the Medicaid, Medicare space. We do all the immunization records, case management, and systems for every state across the U.S. And so behind the scenes, we're making the magic happen so people can get their medicine, people can get their treatment, their services, and call our contact centers to find out how in the heck do I navigate this crazy healthcare system. So,
And it's all virtual.
yes.
Wow. Yeah, so I'm curious to find out what about it is, where do you find the most joy in the job right now?
Ooh, I would say, because that every morning that I'm fortunate to wake up and put my feet on the ground, I'd say I'm fortunate to figure out how do we win as a team. So sports is in my blood. I've got a son that plays D1 basketball at Vanderbilt. My dad played for the Gophers at the U for football. It's in my blood. So sorry about the sports.
No, we've embraced it. No, sorry.
We're a basketball family.
Yeah.
It's how do we? Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's really about how do we win every day, and a few simple tricks or tips that I try to just reinforce is how do I make sure that I've got clarity with my team day in and day out. They understand, and it's really basic, honestly. How do they understand the macro vision of what in the heck we're trying to achieve as a company? Because there are so many different disruptions, issues, and challenges that may come up on a day-to-day basis that you lose focus to that greater good, that greater purpose and mission. And so that is first and foremost. Do my people, do our team members understand what is expected of them day in and day out? And so I make sure that we have that face time. I understand what motivates them. How do they want to be recognized? What do they care most about? How am I helping to develop and invest in our people? So I absolutely will approve every single request for people to get certifications, to get training, to be a part of whatever that's going to help them grow within their career. So that is first and foremost. People want to feel, from my perspective, that they are growing in a number of different ways. So if I can be a part of that process to help them win, to help them grow, the end result is goodness. It's great results. It's profitable growth from what I have experienced.
Yeah, and so if you're totally virtual, the cost of occupation for your company is like zero? So you should be spending that money back on the people,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, but then that is refreshing and it's amazingly clear. So you've been running this organization out of your spare bedroom?
Spare bedroom. It was my son's bedroom. Turned it into my office. He's at college. He doesn't need a bedroom. Yeah.
So I'm curious about life outside of work then, if work is actually in the home. I mean, many of us have done this, right? But we're talking about standing up a global company in the last 2 years during a pandemic. You've got 120 people on your team, you told me last night. And then how many thousand employees total?
10,000.
10,000 employees. So you're working in the spare bedroom. What does life outside of work look like then?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have my husband. And that's a whole other thing, working with your husband at home for 2 years. I still like him. I still like him. I still love him. Yeah, no, it was awesome, and I've shared this with a few people. He's a lawyer, and so he's doing depositions at home. He's on conference calls all day, but our kids got to see him in action, which was very cool, because we don't see that, or haven't typically seen that, and so that was awesome for them to see his work ethic, but then also, once we turned off our laptops, we would go walk around D.C. And for those of you who've been to D.C., it's a beautiful, beautiful city. And we got to appreciate the architecture. We got to appreciate just the beauty of the city. So just having that time for us to just turn it off was amazing.
So I'm curious let's go back to your parents. What did they teach you? You talked about what they were trying to drive in your head, but what did you learn from your parents that are making you really successful at what you're doing right now?
Oh, gosh. They, okay, so let me back up a little bit. My mother is the daughter of a minister, and her brother, she has 3 brothers who are also ministers, and then she's got 3 sisters who are teachers.
Okay, servants.
Yep, yep. And then on my father's side, he has 3 sisters who were also teachers.
Okay.
So, education, achievement, attainment. I'd say what was most important, because we were in 4-H, we were in Girl Scouts, and giving, being a servant leader, caring for others was just key. It was just a part of our DNA. And helping people. It's not just about you, it's about the greater good of the community, it's about humanity, and how you treat one another.
So you have a relationship with the CEO. The CEO is obviously interested in talent.
Yes.
So, we hear the words HR business partner a lot, and the business partner part is the one that gets the most, it's hardest to define, the business partner part. So please tell us, what is your relationship like with your CEO when it comes to all things related to the business?
Yeah. I'd say in this time of a talent shortage, a time where people are just opting out and saying, you know what, I'm done. I'm ready for a career change, or I'm ready to retire. I talk to my CEO 3-4 times a day because talent is so key, so critical to just getting things done and making sure that we've got the right people in the right roles. And so he's a serial CFO. He's got a mechanical engineer degree, an electrical engineer degree, and an MBA in finance.
Well, that's like...
So brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
I can't wait to meet him.
And so I know how to read a P&L.
Okay.
I am tracking the numbers. I understand if X means we do this, then that means X amount for our revenue in terms of the different changes and the decisions we make about our business, our systems, how we're investing in our infrastructure. So that's huge. And so I have to understand where his head is at, what's most important, and how to translate that from a people and talent perspective.
So if I understand your business model right, you have a whole bunch of people who are on the telephone talking to, I didn't want to use the word
Members.
members. Thank you. How many people are doing that?
Yeah, 3,000.
Okay, 3,000. And they're working out of their homes?
Yes.
So how do you monitor their sense of meaningful work with people they respect and admire and feeling like they're making progress?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a journey, I'd say. It's been making sure, honestly, people are just checking in.
Yeah.
Just how are you doing? What's happening? Let's make sure we're talking through, the metrics, the numbers, what needs to get done. We also do, just from an organizational perspective, we do different pulse surveys, and it can be real quick, 3-4 questions.
Yep.
What's happening? What do you need? What do you care most about? How can Gainwell help you become more successful in what you're doing? Do you understand the priorities? And that was interesting. People didn't understand what our focus was, what our priorities were. So we're like, uh-oh. So we spent our last town hall, an entire hour, just real fundamentals. Here's what we care most about. Here's what's most important. And here's how it ties to every single function in terms of how we got to get there. So people were super, super excited and motivated from that, saying, wow, thank you. I needed that because I had no idea. So
It matches with the research we did in the How Goodness Pays book. People need to know where they fit and why they matter. Yeah, very interesting. So part of the process that we use when we interview speakers is we tell them we are going to give them some insight as to what their team members think they do really well. We call those success habits. You saw that in the video. And as part of the way we think about coaching teams, we believe in this concept called epoxy theory. And we know that the highest performing teams have to have an equal mix of relationship capital, the fact that people actually care about each other, and then structural integrity. That's how well they're set up. And the clarity piece is a piece of that. So 50% of each one creates the strongest bond, and that's how we think the highest performing teams form. So we interviewed some of your people. Yep. And they gave us some really interesting information, and we have some success habits that we gleaned, related to your leadership. And the first one that we learned, well, first of all, we learned a little bit about your leadership style, and they describe you are a very nice human being, but they said you are definitely a structural leader.
yeah, yeah. I have 4 kids.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Always organized, always on point, get down to business kind of style, which in HR, awesome. I mean, it's working for you. So they're telling us you have 3 success habits. And the first one is that they really appreciate how you first challenge them to become better people before they become better leaders. That is so refreshing to hear. So why do you do that, and exactly how? Why is it important, and how do you do it?
Wow. Wow. So what's worked for me, what I believe in is that if you truly, truly understand what motivates someone, and that's personally, professionally, you've got to tap into that. As leaders, it is not cookie cutter. And then therefore you can translate that to where you're trying to go and help them along. So that's every single person. You've got to really understand your people.
Yeah, that's an aspirational model. Understand who they are and where they want to go, and then connect the dots to what you're doing right now and how you can get better at it and get there faster if you do some things differently.
And leverage their strengths along the way. Yep.
So the second thing is they talked about you as a results driver. We can tell that came from your parents here now. But you use the words establishing deadlines as promises. That's interesting. You're personalizing it, I assume. So how do you do that?
Yeah. I think what I learned throughout my career also is I saw what happened when you didn't do that.
Okay.
So it's those broken promises of we'll get to that, we'll do that. Yes, I want to do that, but it never happened. And I saw the ripple effect that caused, where people didn't believe in you, you lacked trust, you lacked credibility, people left the organization. People want certainty, so that's huge. Follow through with what you say you're going to do, commit to it, put a plan together, and figure out how it's going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the third one is something you already mentioned earlier, which I think is really cool, is that you put winning as a key word in the culture. It's part of your cultural vocabulary. So let's talk about that, winning.
Yeah. And I think there's some neuroscience behind it. So I remember when playing sports, that feeling of winning as a team. You know, everybody played their role, everyone had something to contribute, and it's what's the greater good of, wow, we accomplished this together. So that's something that I just embody throughout my team, and those concepts, and also just having 4 boys. It's important that they see it's just not about them as an individual. So that's been helpful.
When I saw this, I was reminded that one of the things that we do with our teams when we work with them is we start by asking them, why should you feel like you're winning? A lot of them come to us and they feel like they're not winning. But what we concentrate on grows. By just asking the question, why should we feel like we're winning? You can watch the culture of a team flip really, really quickly when we start talking about all the little things that are going right. Confidence rises. Collegiality rises. All of a sudden, we're all in this together, and we're like, okay, how are we going to get back on track? So what we concentrate on grows is a really powerful thing that drives a lot of the kind of people that we bring here for good leadership, and certainly for you, Natalie. So we did get a chance to collect some questions from the audience, and Heather has some questions she's going to ask you directly.
These are great, so thank you for whoever provided these. So Natalie, the first one is, what advice would you give HR leaders and organizations facing hyper-growth?
Know anything about that?
Yeah, I'd say get some hair dye. Just kidding. No. Gosh. You have got to be agile, because every day is going to change. I guess the finish line may also change as well in terms of where you're trying to go. So you have got to be agile in terms of how you think about what you're trying to change, transform, harmonize, and integrate. It is so key to just be flexible through the process, but also just have a framework in place in terms of making sure that there's clarity as you work through those changes and the growth that's happening as well. Yeah. So I've got a whole playbook. Whoever asked that question, let me know.
And you're also pointing at kind of the personal resilience that you need as a leader in that growth environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, another one. What advice would you give senior HR leaders looking to get to the executive level?
I would say stay curious. What has helped me is to be an avid learner. So I'm reading Wall Street Journal every day, Fortune, Forbes, Inc. I'm on Twitter. I'm trying to understand the talent dynamics that are happening. So stay current. Understand the trends that are happening across the industries. Networking is huge. Building those relationships and those meaningful relationships. How can you help one another? Share information, share resources. I'm a part of probably about 3-4 roundtables, HR executive roundtables, and just you're sharing war stories, lessons learned. And so when you develop those relationships and people say, oh, I can rely on that person for this, they've had a great way to implement this, that starts to build. So that I'd say are some things that have definitely helped.
Well, and what you said earlier, learn to read the P&L.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the language of business for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Natalie. That's all the time we have for the questions, but I do want to say that somebody asked to go bowling with you. So maybe they'll approach you.
Yeah.
Let's go. Thank you. My family refuses to bowl with me, so I'd love to go.
That's funny. Yeah, so we always ask this one question of our speakers. So you know what our subject here, it's goodness. So we want to know, how do you know for sure that goodness pays for you in your leadership?
Yeah. With that particular question, again, I'm reminded of amazing leaders that I've had along the way. Barbara Butts-Williams, Cynthia Newsom, Kevin Warren, that I've had a relationship with in terms of just understanding how he approaches the business and how he looks at different issues along the way. Having an amazing spouse that I can share my war stories with and my challenges with. Goodness pays in a number of ways, and it's a ripple effect. This breakfast is an example and a result of how goodness pays. Truly, truly. And so when you care for others, you do for others in a positive and meaningful way, there is truly, truly a multiplier. So thank you, Paul, for all that you and your organization does.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for being here. Let's give it up for Natalie.
All right, as we go ahead and wrap up and prepare for next month, everybody go ahead and put May 20th, Friday, May 20th down in your schedule. Adrienne Dirks, founder and executive director of Project Success, will be our guest then.
She's in the room right here, over there.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, Adrienne. All right, well, thanks to Heather, thanks to Paul. Paul, go ahead and wrap things on up.
Yeah, thank you. Let's remember the success habits we learned from Natalie. First, focus on helping people be better people before you ask them to be better leaders. Second, I love this idea as deadlines as promises. And then third, the word winning is actually okay to use in your vocabulary. And we saw the energy that comes from that today. It doesn't mean losing is horrible. It's just more fun to win, right? Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to close with a story, a prediction, and a challenge. So the story evolves around something that we're seeing change inside many of the client organizations we work with. It's kind of easy to describe your culture as work hard, play hard. But the more we ask people, what does that actually mean? Seldom can they define it. And so more and more organizations, particularly because of hybrid, are getting dissatisfied with that. We have one specific client who one of their top 3 objectives for the organization is to put the play hard back in work hard, play hard. And along that, they're deciding to change that and make it more specific. And what they're talking about now is this concept of being committed to making sure that everyone in the organization enjoys the journey. I think that's a fascinating concept. And the word enjoy is powerful because the root of it is joy, and enjoy means finding joy. Joy, how often does that word get expressed inside the walls of your organizations? Joy is a powerful motivator, and we see it in many different places around the 7F's wheel. So what I think is really interesting is that when you combine enjoy with the journey, it means we're in it for the long haul, and it also starts to connect to those things like meaningful work. I'm really challenging you to think about that as you go back into your workplaces. And it also occurred to me that, how many times have we heard the word hybrid lately? If we all had $1 for every time we've heard the word hybrid. But we have a word for that here at Good Leadership. It's called blending. Blending the 7F's means looking for satisfaction on your 7F's wheel in everything you do, whether it's personal or professional. And the more of those 7F's you see in anything, that's blending. You're blending the 7F's, you're blending your personal life and professional life. We think that's a word that's a lot more sustainable. So the prediction is, we know this to be true in our organization. We're trying to hire. Anybody else trying to hire? What's fascinating is that the employee or the job seekers, the power has shifted. They're interviewing us to see if we can help them enjoy their journey. It's a powerful shift, and unless you can prove that you can help them enjoy their journey, you're not going to win. So now here's the challenge that I want to issue. Can you think about what moniker or mantra you can create to describe your culture? If you're using work hard, play hard, just consider letting that go. Can you land on something as powerful as enjoy the journey? Because if you can label it and describe it and talk about it as part of your winning advantage, You're going to help people help each other. And that's what goodness is all about. Goodness is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. So I'm going to remind you now that we have a book coming out this summer. It's called Good Leadership is a Team Sport. We're pre-ordering right now, so they're on the way out the door. You can get some information about that. We're grateful for all the encouragement. Some of you know that I've been working on this book for 5.5 years. So those of you who have been here many times before, you know that this is our favorite thing. The highest compliment that you can give to any good leader is, you radiate goodness. So now I'm asking you, are you ready to radiate goodness today? Yes. We'll do it one more time. Are you ready to radiate goodness today? Yes. Thank you very much. We'll see you in May.